If I got shot today, I am sure there are millions of people around the globe who would ravel in my death.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Charlie Kirk himself tweeted, "The right to speak freely is the birthright of all Americans." It's very interesting that in the last 3 days after Charlie Kirk was killed, they even proposed a bill to revoke citizenships for people critical of Israel.
Who committed the hit job on Charlie Kirk?
I don't know, but I find it very interesting that Netanyahu, Prime Minister of a country, went around the TV shows making sure that we didn't kill. I mean, this is like a very weird position.
But I've also been, as you know, increasingly critical of the Israeli government.
I'm sorry, you're not fooling me, Piers. You are actually the real Iron Dome of Israel.
You want the right to suggest that Charlie Kirk was the subject of a hit job by Israel. You want the world to think that.
Well, let's talk about Toby Robinson. So Israel openly causing civil unrest in London.
You call me an ill-informed, irresponsible journalist.
Because I'm not a journalist. I'm a comedian. Remember, I'm a clown.
Charlie Kirk's murder has shone an unflattering spotlight on the abject state of discourse and division, especially online, where extreme takes increasingly lead to real-world consequences. Many of the protesters at London's massive anti-immigration march this weekend, already fired up by some dubious content, brought their fury about Charlie Kirk onto the streets, and at the heart of it all is a bitter blame game which neither side is in the mood for compromise. Comedian and activist Bاسm Yusuf is a familiar face to uncensored viewers. His recent contribution to these debates implies he's in no mood for taking the temperature down. He's about to embark on a new tour called The Belly of the Beast, and he joins me now. Bاسm, great to see you again.
Hello.
What is your view of the Charlie Kirk assassination?
Oh, assassination is bad. I mean, it's a very open question. And so if you're talking about the assassination, of course it's bad. But can you get more specific? What do you want me to say?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the more specific one would be, I've been appalled. I didn't agree with everything Charlie Kirk stood for or said, but I respected the fact that he always went in to college campuses in particular and invited everyone who disagreed with him to come and debate with him. He was always happy to hear other people giving their views and would challenge them and they would challenge him. And I was appalled that the woke left, as I see it, as opposed to the old liberal left in which I used to be a happy member, that the woke left seemed to be gleeful about his murder and have raced the social media to celebrate it. We've seen rap stars do it. We've seen TikTokers do it. Influencers do it. All over the world, competing with each other to see who could be the most gleeful. We've seen teachers, doctors, university administrators and so on. I'm at a complete loss to understand how any human being with any sense of humanity would want to be seen celebrating the murder of a 31-year-old man with his wife and 2 kids watching at the time for his opinions.
I mean, it's terrible, of course. I mean, celebrate anybody's death, whether it's a 31-year-old father or babies and children in Gaza every day, where we have seen the woke left and the right are celebrating the death of children every single day and nothing happened to them. I mean, first of all, when you say the woke left, who are these people? Are they who are the leaders? Bunch of pop stars and influencers and people with TikTok, and I mean, does that represent?
Well, I think it's more. Well, I would say it's more than that. I'd say there's a lot of people who I think have been part of what I call the woke ideology in the last few years, which has morphed from a very laudable thing originally, when in the 60s and 70s it started in American black music, and it was about promoting a raised awareness of social and racial injustice. I wrote a book about it. By that criteria, I'm happily woke. But what it's morphed into in recent years, driven I think by very tribal social media, is it's become a form of fascism, where people on the woke left are quite happy to want to shame and vilify and cancel and destroy people for having a different view to them, whether that view is about historical figures or about books or about movies or about fashion or about hairstyles or what you can wear on Halloween or whatever it may be. It became a puritanical purge which I felt has bordered on fascism, and at the heart of it was the constant description of Donald Trump as the new Hitler, his supporters as the new Nazis. They're all a bunch of fascists, and eventually you have a young, deranged mind who apparently, according to investigators, is of a woke ideology, radicalized, who initialed on the bullets that this was an anti-fascism assassination, because he probably believed that Charlie Kirk was a fascist and a Nazi and everything else, because that's what his people had told him. And I feel that's an incredibly dangerous cocktail that has been allowed to happen. And when I saw the celebrations going on, I realized it wasn't just about this shooter, that there were a lot of people in America, in the UK, around the world, who actually agree and were prepared to celebrate it.
Well, let's break this down. Now, when you say the left, it's very general. If you have thousands of people with TikTok accounts that celebrate people's death, it happens on the right and on the left. Mm-hmm. There are people who have mocked the death of the Minnesota lawmaker and her husband and her dog that were shot in front of their 4 years old. And again, I just want to preface it, I'm not condoning what happened to Charlie Kirk. What happened is terrible. It should not be accepted. And myself, I will never celebrate something like that. But I'm a little bit confused because someone like Randy Fine, who's a congressman from Florida, who posted about going after people's jobs if they mock Charlie's death online, which is terrible, of course, if you mock anybody's death. But the fact that you go after someone, it's very confusing to me because for those of you who don't know who Randy Fine is, he is the fat bitch who continues to suck Israel dick every day on a daily basis. And that guy, he is in Gaza, he said, everyone in Gaza should die. Kill them all. Let the blood fall in Gaza. They are animals. And now he pretends to have a soul. That this kind of manufactured selective rage that will confuse you. If you're going to have rage, please. If you're going to be angry, please. But just be consistent. We have people losing their jobs, their careers, getting cancers for being dismissive about Charlie death. Again, terrible to do. But I don't get it because I thought canceling something is what the hippie PC left would do. I don't condone making insensitive remarks about a guy who was just murdered. We can discuss his ideas. We can praise or trash his ideas because his ideas will live on forever. But if some people are insensitive or rude, well, he was a public figure. For many people, he was a controversial figure. If today Biden or Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton died or got shot, I'm sure there's a lot of people that will celebrate their death. If I got shot today, I am sure there are millions of people around the globe who would revel in my death, and they will make content that would call it insensitive. I'm sure that if you died, Piers Morgan, people will be celebrating. So I don't understand. Yes, we can talk about it being insensitive, terrible. We can talk about it with a moral issue, but I don't understand the double standards of the West.
Well, I think on that, Bاسم.
Let me
finish. Yeah.
Because for years, we as Muslims and Arabs, we were lectured from the West about freedom of expression, freedom to offend. It's very important. Freedom to offend. Freedom to offend. But for years, people made fun of Muslims, Arabs, our religion, our culture, our babies and children being killed in Gaza every single day. And no one lost a single minute of sleep over it, which is very confusing to me because the lines between what is legal, what is allowed, what is accepted, what is punishable, what is frowned upon, these are lines seem hazy. So please, yes, go, rage, be angry about it, but be consistent so people can believe you.
I think you make a very good point. I've seen some of the hounding of certain people out of jobs in the last few days is clearly hypocritical because unless you're actually condoning the murder and endorsing and supporting an act of criminal murder, if you're just criticizing Charlie Kirk for positions that he held, I think that's perfectly okay, right? I may not like it if you're a friend of Charlie's or one of his family members, but he would be the first to say, that's fine. Where I think the line is for me with cancel culture, if you like, is that there's a guy, for example, who's the president-elect of the Oxford Union Debating Society. I think you've done it, Bاسم, haven't you?
Yeah.
Right. So we've both done that. It's probably the most famous debating society in the world. The whole point of it is that they bring people into that chamber to debate, to have different opinions and debate, as you and I do regularly. And the president-elect, after Charlie Kirk was murdered, having debated opposite Charlie Kirk in that chamber in May himself, actually gleefully celebrated the murder, said LOL, and said, let's fucking go, with a big exclamation mark, right? That to me, it's not cancel culture to say that guy should not be the president of the Oxford Union Debating Society. Clearly, he should not be the president of a debating society if he celebrates somebody being murdered for their opinions. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that, but if we agree on that, let's agree on everything else. So everybody who holds a position who mocks the death of Palestinian children being killed every day in front of cameras, they should lose their job too. You understand why it is difficult for me to be on the same page with you? Because this is like cherry picking. Like you
haven't asked me if I agree with you.
No,
I don't disagree. I think if you're a doctor, let me explain. If you're a Harvard professor, or you're a doctor, or you're a teacher, and you glorify or celebrate the murder, or depending which side you're on, whether you see it as murder or collateral damage if you go after Hamas, whatever you want to call it. But if you are seen celebrating
you have
the
to
death,
mention Hamas there, right?
I'm just showing you.
You have to just like you have to
no. You know my view of this. Right? No, Bاسm, no. I'm simply saying.
You just have to mention Hamas.
I'm simply saying there are many profiles. Wait a minute. Let me clarify. The reason I clarified, there are many people who believe what the IDF has been doing with civilians is murder and genocide. There are others on the pro-Israeli side who believe that they are targeting a terror group in Hamas, and that innocent people will get killed in the process, therefore it's not murder. So I'm clarifying the two sides of that debate. You have a strong view, other people have an equally strong view the other way. But my point being, if you're in a position of...
There's no two sides of genocide. There's no two sides of the Holocaust.
I know.
So let's stop two-siding it because it's becoming exhausting.
Okay, let's not get into that part of the debate. The part I want to agree with you about is this. I think if you're an administrator of a university or a hospital or a school, if you're in charge of teaching people or medical practice, and you are seen celebrating the deaths of innocent people publicly on social media, you should not keep your job, right? Because clearly you are unfit for that job, and it should be down to the people who run these organizations to say, sorry, no, you don't get to teach kids if you glorify murder.
Well, there are people who are teaching kids on the left who glorified, hey, happy 5th anniversary for George Floyd. It's 5 years sober because he's dead for 5 years. I mean, the thing is, my thing is, if we're going to live in a utopian, polite society, let's make it general. The idea of just cherry picking things like that.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, here's the thing. This is the internet, Piers. The internet will always promote the most hateful, the most controversial reaction. This is how social media there's a whole kind of scoring system. A like would be 1 point, an angry face would be 5 points. This is what the internet, this is what boils up to the surface. It's always like that. If people say, oh, Charlie was a good man, I hope he's in heaven, that will not get a lot of traction. But people with more controversial, that's just a function of the internet. But if you're gonna talk, the internet, people all go on Twitter and they just write whatever on their mind. But if you're gonna punish people with whatever on their mind, so we need, I think, to expand this spectrum. And let me read something that Kierk himself tweeted, talking about free speech. Because in April he said, tomorrow the House will vote on HR 867, a bill that will criminalize private boycotting of Israel, fines up to $1 million and prison up to 20 years. Bills like this only create more anti-Semitism and play into growing narratives that Israel is running the U.S. government. In America, you are allowed to hold differing views. You are allowed to disagree and protest. You're allowed to too many people who hate America to move here from abroad, but the right to speak freely is the birthright of all Americans. This bill should not pass. Any Republicans that vote for this bill will expose themselves. We will be watching very closely. And then it's very interesting that in the last 3 days after Charlie Kirk was killed, in the past 3 days, the Congress approved $650 million for Israel for missile defense. They presented an amendment that bans Pentagon from boycotting Israel. And they even proposed a bill to allow Márco Roubio to revoke citizenships for people critical of Israel. This is what we need to talk about. This is what we need to talk about. If there are people there who celebrate if the Pope was killed. There are people it's been going on for years. Even when the Pope if he died, people celebrate his death.
Yeah.
This is words. Yeah, it could be terrible, offensive words, but when you turn words into destroying people's careers, revoking people's citizenship because they talk about a foreign country, this is the real problem. This is the real problem with freedom of speech. That is not about people celebrating or angry about someone who died. All right, our roads and infrastructures, our education system, our healthcare, they're failing. While settlers in the West Bank, they occupied Palestine, they get free housing, get free healthcare, free education. Same in England. I mean, I'm sorry, but like you, as a very famous and a very able and a very competent investigative reporter, I think you should actually talk about why more than half of your cabinet in the British government is financed by Israel. Why the Royal Army, the Royal Air Force are giving logistical help to Israeli planes bombing Gaza. I'm sure that there's not a single British person who would agree on that. Isn't that more important than this kind of manufactured rage? I mean, why don't you talk about like...
Well, okay, but
aren't you worried? No, but like seriously.
No, I hear you.
I'm very, very curious. Yeah, but why don't you talk about this?
But Bassem, as you know, I talk about the war all the time. And as
you never talked about the Israeli lobby financing your British benefits. You never did.
All right, there are always lots of...
You never did.
Okay, but there are lots of...
You never did.
Okay, but I've also been, as you know, increasingly critical of the Israeli government. You can't accuse me of being biased.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you're not fooling me, Piers. I'm sorry. Because, like, I came on your show many times, I discussed October 7th. Many people came to you and asked you, and people said, Piers Morgan have, like, changed the mind. I'm sorry, it doesn't fool me for a second.
It's not about changing my mind.
I'm sorry. You and the Western media have been complicit in diverting and deflecting the truth and the facts. You are actually the real Iron Dome of Israel. You pretend to ask a tough question for the Israeli to maintain your credibility, but like you, over the past 2 years, you had laundering Zionist talking points. You never investigated the Hannibal Directive. You never questioned why it took them 6 hours to respond. You never used the Hannibal Directive.
Well, how many times have I had you on the show?
No.
How many times? How many times have you been on?
It doesn't matter. It's not about
you. Say I never question these things. I platformed you multiple times, and you have talked about this every time. Right? So you have been doing that on my show. Literally, you have been doing that on my show.
And you effectively sabotage these interviews. I brought up in your interviews many times Asa Whitestance, who's a British reporter who talked in length about the rape hoax, about the Hannibal Directive, and he was raided by British police. They took his laptop, and I asked you twice on your show to bring him on your show to talk to you about how the Israeli propaganda lies are all lies, but you never did. If you actually were actually honest about this, you would do this. Not about platforming. I mean, you platforming people, it's good for views, it's good for reach. But like, I'm sorry, it's about like how many times did Ben Shapiro come on your show and he talked about moral equivalency? There is no moral equivalency. There is no moral equivalency. Well,
he thinks there is.
Yeah. He said there's no moral equivalency between Hamas and Israel. He said that.
That's
but
right.
the thing is, but if any journalist who has read a little bit, who would say, well, Noam Chomsky said that moral equivalency is a propaganda term that was used in order to prevent us from looking to our actions. So we turn people into bad guys and good guys. The bad guys, even if he's occupied, he deserves to be killed. The good guys, even if they nuke them, it's okay because it's the good guy. You see, this is how you do the conversation. It's not about platforming.
You think Ben Shapiro is very partisan to the Israeli position? I wouldn't disagree. I don't think he would disagree. But many people think you are very partisan the other way, and that your hatred of all things Israel leads you to say things. Well, leads you to say things like this. This is what you said about the Charlie Kirk murder in relation. Many people think you were implying something about Israel here. Let's take a listen.
Yeah. Charlie Kirk is an obvious hit job, what happened there. But will we get the answer? No. They will stick it to whatever and then use it. I don't know, maybe they will stick it to Iran like Netanyahu and his people, the Israeli wire and the others were pushing for Iran being the culprit behind Trump's assassination. They can do that to Charlie Kirk and start a war, or stick it to the left and start a civil war. There is anger, and there were people who would use this anger.
So Bassem, just to be clear, who committed the hit job on Charlie Kirk? Today's show is brought to you by Oxford Natural, makers of the Optimum Day and Optimum Night all-natural supplements. Thousands of Brits and Americans are already taking them with incredible results. Optimum Day is designed to boost your energy and support weight loss throughout the day. Optimum Night helps you relax and get deep, refreshing sleep. And don't just take their word for it. Here are just a few of their success stories. England football legend Michael Owen lost 40 pounds. Robbie, the face of AFTV, dropped over £100. Linda, a top law firm executive, lost £50. And Anita, an immigration lawyer, shed £60. To watch their full stories and find out more, scan the QR code on your screen or visit oxfordnatural.com/peers. And here's the best part. Use the code PEERS, P-I-E-R-S, and get 70% off your first order. Get 70% off with the promo code PEERS.
I don't know, but I find it very interesting that Netanyahu, prime minister of a country, went around the TV shows making sure that we didn't kill. I mean, it's like, this is like a very weird position.
So why are you suggesting Israel did?
Have you ever? No, I'm not suggesting.
But you are suggesting that, aren't you?
Because
because
the FBI is lying to us. The FBI has been lying to us.
Right.
I mean, I'll give you an example.
But why don't you be honest in the way, you always want everybody else to be honest. Why don't you be honest and admit that when you say Charlie Kirk's murder was clearly a hit job, and then you start talking immediately about Netanyahu denying it was him, that you believe, or you want people to think...
I have doubts.
You want people to think it may be an Israel hit job.
I have doubts. Because, like, I mean, look at the fact...
Why on earth would it be an Israel hit job? We know who it was.
I am not sure. I don't know. Well, another sassy 22 years old jerking off in his mom's basement. I mean, another like Trump. I mean, here's the thing. The FBI actually has been lying to us. They have been covering for, like, they told us about the Epstein file, which is Israel is clearly involved. And then they said there's no Epstein file. Israel has been, like, holding 98% of the Congress hostage, either with money or blackmail. And you cannot dispute that. And actually, if you want to dispute that, here's like a little case for you. In the last month, a guy by the name of Tom Alexandrovich, he was the head of cybersecurity in Netanyahu's government, right? And this guy is not a random guy. He's like part of the Netanyahu government. And he was caught in Nevada, an FBI child sex operation, trying to lure a 15-years-old minor. That guy was protected by the DA, who's Israeli, by the way, in Nevada, and he went on the plane and he missed his trial. Now, you come to me and you tell me all of these things, like when people are raving about Israeli Mossad and how they're infiltrating, and then suddenly we have to believe that they're innocent. I mean, not a single mainstream outlet talk about Tom Alexandrovich. So now you have pedophiles coming into our country.
Actually, I've read that story on multiple mainstream media outlets.
No, not a single one. Go to ChatGPT right now.
I'm very familiar with that story.
No. Yeah, you have seen them on Young Turks. You have seen them on Breaking Points. You have seen them on those independent media outlets. You have seen them on...
I've read it on The Guardian.
Yeah, The Guardian. I'm talking about American mainstream, right? American mainstream. Not a single comedian in late night show even discussed. So the question is this: when you have this cover up by the FBI, when the FBI let a pedophile from Israel flies back to Israel, while also Israel is known to be holding the biggest number of pedophiles escaping from justice, having refuge there. All of these things, doesn't make you like, what the hell? This is like a whole cover up.
Well, it does, but then it does, Bاسم. But then when I see you say Charlie Kirk's murder was clearly a hit job and you imply it's Israel, I think you've lost your mind.
Maybe I did. Like I lost my mind when I told you about the Hannibal Directive, and then I came...
No, I think there's merit to the Hannibal Directive story.
Oh, there's merit?
Yeah, but I think you're completely...
Because I remember you making fun of me, and you're telling me you showed me just a bunch of pictures.
Yeah, unlike you, Bاسم,
so now you changed your mind?
My views of things evolve when I see new information. It's called being a journalist.
Really? So why don't you do your job as a journalist and actually talk
about
the Hannibal Directive?
What you mean is, why don't I smear... What you would like me to do as a journalist is only focus on anti-Israel stuff, and that's fine. That's what you want to do.
No. I'm saying that you're not asking the right questions because you...
Well, maybe you're a better journalist than I am.
No, I'm not a better. Like I'm just like a just normal guy looking in the internet. But let me ask you a question. You always talk about hostages, and then Israel goes to Qatar and bombs the negotiating team about hostages.
Yeah.
While you, for 2 years,
you
were always like, what about the hostages? At this point, And here's my like.
Why don't you ask me what I think of that? Given I've literally interviewed today Israel's UN ambassador Danny Danon about the attack in Doha.
About time.
Well, why don't you ask me what I think first before you make? No, Bاسم, I'm sorry. Before you make presumptions about what I think about it, why don't you ask me what I think about it?
It's not about presumptions. You have actually laundered a lot of Zionist talking points, and you never asked the tough question. You ask the tough question now when it is fashionable.
So why do I get so many Zionists telling me the complete opposite?
Yeah, well, they do that to everybody. It's like they do that. Like, I mean, they even called like Biden and Trump.
But what is your point about the strike in Doha? You don't think I'm against that?
No, I'm not talking about them against that. I'm talking about you always put like the hostages front and center.
Yeah.
Right? And we have told you many times, Piers, for 2 years, it's never about the hostages. Never about the hostages. But you would put people, what about the hostages? And we told you, Netanyahu doesn't care about the hostages. We told you from different the sources from the Israeli government. It's not about the hostages.
They should be released, right, Bاسم? They should be released.
Yeah, they should release. But it doesn't matter if you have 50 hostages or 20 hostages. You don't decimate a whole country, a whole people.
But I agree.
Like it's not an excuse.
I agree with you.
Here's the thing. My question is,
Bاسm, I agree with you.
Why should you even take Israel for any word that is said, right? They lied about not targeting civilians. They lied about like not targeting doctors, women, children, building. They lied about the intention not to displace people in Gaza, and they're doing it. They lied about being like everybody's.
I don't think you've watched my show for a while, have you, Bاسm? Because otherwise you would know that if you would watch my show, you would know that one of the Bاسm, if I may respond, you would know if you'd watched my show for the last few months that one of my biggest criticisms is Israel's refusal to allow international media into Gaza to independently verify what's been going on. Because my strong suspicion is that when they finally get in there, they will find a lot of evidence of war crimes. I've said that very loudly and clearly.
Well, I'm sorry, Piers. The Israeli soldiers, they film on TikTok their war crimes and they put it in the word. Do you? I'm sorry. Anybody who knows anything about an army, any army in the world, knows that army is all about discipline. Those people who are not going around with their mobile phones shooting this and putting out unless the army is letting them. Because I don't think the British army or the French army or the Egyptian army or the American army will allow their soldiers shooting this and putting there unless there is some sort of unwritten rules like, show them. Show them what we can do. This is not just like a bunch of...
But I've called that stuff out, as you know. Or maybe you don't know.
Yeah,
I said it's totally wrong. The trouble is, Bاسm, it's never enough for you, you see. It doesn't matter how critical journalists are about Israel. It will never be enough for you because you want the right to suggest that Charlie Kirk was the subject of a hit job by Israel. You want the world to think that. That's why you said what you said, and that's why when I asked you, you went, Netanyahu says it wasn't him.
By the way, I'm not even the only one. People are actually. Here's the thing: if you continue lying to your people. Right? I'll tell you what. Let's call me a conspiracy theorist, right?
Yeah.
Call me someone who is illogical. Call me whatever you want. If your government continues to lie to you consistently, this is where conspiracy theorists thrive. If you're not transparent,
but why do you want to be one of them?
If you want to cover, no. I'm not saying I'm one of them.
Why float a mad conspiracy theory about Israel?
Because it's the internet, and I'm a comedian.
Okay, but it's not that funny, though, is it?
Actually, a lot of people thought it was very funny.
You have millions, I'm sure they did, but millions of people follow you, and you want them to think that Israel was behind the murder of Charlie Kirk. And you call me an ill-informed, irresponsible journalist.
Because comedians are actually overpaid.
But I think there's somebody who is so blindly hateful of all things Israel that you'll even promote a conspiracy theory, which is obvious nonsense. So they have something to do with Charlie Kirk's murder.
I'm not blindly hateful of Israel. I'm actually eyes wide open hateful of Israel.
Sure. But unfortunately, what it's done is driven you to promote conspiracy theories about their potential involvement in Charlie Kirk's murder. I just released a video today, and I told them, you need to give us better lies. I didn't even mention that Israel. I said, like, this is a hit job. It was a hit job. Whether it was like a... You inferred it was Israel, and when I asked you about it, you went on a little rant about Netanyahu. Everyone can see it for what it is.
No. Okay. So call me a conspiracy theorist.
No, I think you're doing it quite deliberately because you hate Israel so much. You want to associate it with every bad thing that's going on in the world. Whereas I prefer to be a bit more nuanced about it. Let me ask you about. Let me ask you before we finish about the Elon Musk intervention in the UK protests at the weekend, the Unite the Kingdom rally organised by Tommy Robinson. What was your view of that?
Actually, there was a scene that I found it very interesting. I felt like the Maori, which is the indigenous people of New Zealand, they were doing like a traditional dance, like a haka dance, and they were like tearing off the Palestinian flag, which I found it it's like an oxymoron, like indigenous people tearing off Palestine. Well, let's talk about Tommy Robinson. This guy has been in Israel many times, and he has like IDF shirts and Mossad shirts all over. Should we actually call that a conspiracy theory, that he's not like actually like someone who's been pushing a certain agenda, or that also?
No, he's obviously been pushing a certain agenda. He's very pro-Israel, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that's not a conspiracy theory then.
No, it's a fact.
So Israel openly causing civil unrest in London. In London, Israel has been openly causing all of these problems. Israel has been openly.
But he's not Israeli, is he?
No. But he is being put by Israel. Like Israel doesn't have to. Like I mean,
he was doing this stuff long before Israel came along. Trust me.
The 525 Congress people out of the 535, which is 98% of Congress, they're all paid by Israel and not Israelis, and they're causing more damage to American public more than anything. So the thing is, let me tell you something that like it might actually make you see where I come from. If you are a citizen of a country, and it is the superpower of the world, it is one of. By the way, I like living in the United States. The United States is a great country, and the people here are great. I have never had a single bad day here because the people here are lovely, and it's a great country, a great potential, wonderful people. But when you see that all of your politicians, all of your representatives are openly financed by a rogue country that is indicted in the ICC and ICJ. And just last year we sent them $30 billion, and we sent them billions and billions of dollars, and we see all of our infrastructure is falling. You will also hate that country. You know, it's not even if Gaza like is resolved today. I don't see it resolving in a good way, right? Even that still stands. Israel is a leash on our system, on our country, on your country.
All right, can we get back to the rally?
On your country.
Can we get back to the rally in London? That was the question I asked you. And whether you think it was right for Elon Musk to get involved in the way that he did, and to say you have to fight violence on the left, you have to fight back. What did you think of that?
I mean, isn't that inciting violence? The richest guy in the world, who has the biggest platform in the world, who, by the way, just suspended the Twitter account of the flotilla that's going there to Israel, which is making me very biased. But I don't understand. The guy, it's crazy now that we're seeing people in tech using their power to incite violence. It is crazy and it is unacceptable. And I think you, as a British citizen yourself, should be worried. You should be worried because for the past 2 months, nonstop, daily, Elon Musk has been tweeting about Muslim gangs raping women, and he's even getting cases from 1991. Where statistics say that 85% of rape and criminal crimes are actually done by white people. So I don't understand. Is that helpful? Is that healthy to England?
Well, what was not healthy was a massive cover-up going on with the almost exclusively British Pakistani gangs who were grooming and raping many young girls, including underage girls, for many years. And it was deliberately covered up to avoid creating any racial tension. And then subsequent governments single-handedly failed to deal with this and made it worse. So yeah, that was a real scandal. And Robinson was very vocal about it. And it played into his hands as an example of the establishment working to cover up the sexual abuse of young girls.
Yes, the cover-up of sex and abuse of young girls and men should not go away, like Tom Alexandrovich, who actually escaped. That's another cover-up.
But presumably you would condemn those British. You would condemn those British. You would condemn, I presume, those British Pakistani men for what they did to those girls, right?
And I would condemn the governments who covered up for them.
Okay,
and
good.
I would actually ask them to be brought to trial.
Yeah, I agree.
The same way that everybody in the FBI should be brought to trial for covering up Epstein files and Tom Alexandrovich.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't disagree.
Good.
Let's end on a note of agreement. Good to have you back on Uncensored, Bاسم. Thank you very much.